Hello, today we are going to go through complex solids. So in other words, complex figures are where you guys will have two or more solids that will create one whole solid. So the most important thing to do here is to first identify the different solids that you have, and then get those formulas and then start finding the numbers that correspond with them, okay? So the first one here, I see that I have a rectangular prism at the bottom, and then I have a rectangular pyramid on top. So those are the two formulas that I need to get here. So one will be for my pyramid, and one will be for my prism. So our rectangular pyramid formula is volume equals a third times length times width times height, and our rectangular prism formula is volume equals length times width times height. Okay, so now we just need to start plugging in those numbers. So let's start with the pyramid here. So remember, your length and your width comes from the bottom of the rectangle. So if you guys notice, the length down here is going to match that 25. The width of the bottom is going to match this 12. And then the height of just the pyramid itself is indicated by this solid black line here. So the height of the entire pyramid is 9. Alright, so then all you have to do is just multiply all those numbers. So a third times 25 times 12 times 9 is going to give you 900 cubic inches. Okay. So now we need to do the same thing, but now with the prism. So the prism's just the bottom here. So it's just length times width times height. So my length is 25, my width is 12, and the height of the prism is 10. So it's going to be 25 times 12 times 10. And again, all that we're doing is we're multiplying all those numbers. So 25 times 12 times 10 is going to give me a volume of 3,000 cubic inches. Alright, so then your very last step is, once you have the volume of the prism and once you have the volume of the pyramid, to figure out the entire volume of the figure, of the solid here, you're just going to add up your two volumes together. So 3,000 plus your 900 is going to give you a total volume of 3,900 cubic inches. Alright, so let's try the next one. So again, your first step is to identify what solid you have. So I see that I have a cone at the top. It's just an upside down cone, and then I have the cone sitting on top of my cylinder. Okay, so those are the two formulas that we need. So cylinder and cone. And again, you guys have all these formulas in your packet, so you just might have to flip back to see what the formulas are. So your volume formula of a cylinder is pi r squared h, and the volume formula of your cone is 1/3 pi r squared h. Alright, so let's start with our cylinder. So they do want us to use 3.14 for pi. R is the radius of the cylinder, and they indicate that right here, which is 3. So we're going to square R3, and then our height of the entire cylinder is going to be that 15. Alright, so again, we're just multiplying here. So 3 squared is 9. 9 times 15 times our 3.14 is going to give us 423.9 cubic meters. And now we need to figure out the volume of our cone. So for a cone, we have our 1/3 times pi, which is 3.14. The radius is the same as our cylinder, because the bottom of the cone, or the circle of the cone, is sharing the circle of the cylinder, so our radius is still 3. But this time, the height, we need the height of the cone, so that's indicated by this vertical line right here. So the height is 11. All right, and then again, we're just multiplying. So 3 squared is 9 times 11 times 3.14 times a third is going to give us a volume of 103.62 cubic meters. All right, so then once you get your two volumes, last step is to just add them together. So 423.9 plus your 103.62 gives us a total volume of 527.52 cubic meters. All right, moving on to the back side. All right, so again, your first step is to identify the solids that you have. So again, I see that we have another cone. And then it looks like a sphere, but it's only half of a sphere. So we have what we call a hemisphere. All right, so let's start with the cone first. So again, our volume formula of a cone is 1/3 pi r squared h. This time they want us to keep pi in our answer, so we are not going to substitute in 3.14 for pi. So we're just going to leave the 1/3. We're going to leave the pi. R squared, so in this case our radius is this 10, and we're going to square it. And then the height of the entire cone here is 15. All right, so when you're leaving pi in your answer, you're going to leave the pi and then you're just going to simplify everything else. So 10 squared times 15 times a third is going to give us 500. And then again, you just leave your pi, and then this will be cubic centimeters. All right, now for the hemisphere. So we do not have a formula for the hemisphere because we taught you guys the entire sphere. So if you only have half of a sphere, so in other words, a hemisphere, you're just going to take your formula, and then you're just going to divide it by 2. So our formula, I'm going to use a sticky note for right now. So our formula for a sphere was 4/3 pi r cubed. Okay, so for a hemisphere, we're just going to take this entire thing and we are going to divide it by 2. So you can find the volume of a whole sphere first and then divide it by 2. Or you can incorporate this divided by 2 within your fraction by making this 4/3 divided by 2, and that would give you 4/6. So you could have 4/6 pi r cubed, or figure out the full sphere first and then just take that divided by 2. So you guys can figure out what way you would like to do it. Okay. So let's just start with the entire sphere. So 4/3 pi r cubed. Again, we're going to leave pi in our answer, so we are going to take 4/3 times our radius cubed. So again, our radius is that 10. All right, and then now we're just simplifying. So if we take 10 cubed, so 10 times 10 times 10, that is 1,000. And then take that 1,000 times your 4/3, and that will give you 1,333.3 repeating. But again, since this is a hemisphere, we need to divide this entire thing by 2. So when I take that number divided by 2, we then get 666.6 repeating. And I'm just going to leave it as 6/7. And then don't forget, we didn't incorporate pi, so pi needs to stay down there. And that will be cubic centimeters. All right, so once we get our two volumes, our last step is to add them together. So 500 pi plus a 666.67 pi will give us a grand total of 1,166.67 pi cubic centimeters. All right, so let's try the last one here. So again, your first step is to identify the two figures that you have. So I see that I have a rectangular prism here. And then it looks like I have a square pyramid on top here. All right, so let's start with the prism because that's the easiest. So your volume is length times width times height. Our length and the width is the bottom, so that's 4 and 4. And then the height is the height of the entire figure here, which is 5. So when you multiply all those numbers, 4 times 4 times 5 will give you 80. And then for your pyramid, our square pyramid has a volume formula of 1/3 s squared h, or you can do the length times width times height. All right, so that would be 1/3 times your sides. So the sides of the base are 4 and 4, so that would be 4 squared, times the height of the entire figure here, which is 6. All right, so again, you're just multiplying. So 4 squared is 16. 16 times 6 times 1/3 is 32. And our last step is to combine those two volumes together. So 80 plus 32 will give us a total volume of 112 cubic inches. All right, so that is your guys' lesson. If you have any questions, let your teacher know.